So let's get started. Google Ads account structure in today's Google Ads deep dive. A few quick words about Holini and our background and experiences as well. Holini is a Google Ads and analytics agency specialized in working with B2B tech companies. And this specialization, combined with only having senior specialists in our team, has enabled us to audit and work on more like in-depth B2B specific strategies for some really cool companies. And we usually work with B2B companies who are looking to optimize and scale up their Google Ads efforts already, including some high growth companies from A round all the way up to unicorns, like Verif can be seen here, for example. And we're also honored to be a Google Premier partner and a part of multiple invite-only exclusive Google programs accessible to a select few top agencies in any given region. And these give us access to some additional resources, insights, and just overall general support from Google. But enough about us. Let's start talking about you and your accounts, and try to use the time we have here today to introduce our thought processes around account structuring, or more precisely, the segmenting principles we use for segmenting our search campaigns in our B2B clients' accounts. Now, B2B businesses have quite a bit more nuances to keep in mind when making these structuring decisions, and one of the biggest shared challenges in running Google Ads for B2B being the scarcity of data available to guide either our own optimizations or machine learning algorithms decision making. So me and the Holini team have had the privilege of auditing quite a lot of Google Ads accounts in the past years, and an account structure that doesn't really align with or support machine learning success has been quite a common finding. So let's help tackle this challenge a bit today. And we're going to start off by going over the different reasons you might have for segmenting campaigns in the first place, and then focus a bit deeper on the questions to ask or what exactly to keep in mind when structuring your search campaigns. So questions like, when does it make sense to separate campaigns, or based on what could or should I separate campaigns, and when would it be beneficial to instead consolidate them together. Also, discussing the potential consequences of a suboptimal account structure. Spoiler alert, inefficiency and wasted spend will be the result of that. And we'll go through examples for each campaign segmenting principle as well. And finally, show you how you can still maintain a very much granular relevancy, even if you have a very consolidated account structure. So hopefully by the end of today's workshop, you will have a set of questions or thoughts relevant to your business and Google Ads account to guide you in moving towards an optimal account structure to really leverage the capabilities of Google's automations. And I would also like to emphasize here why I'm so heavily focusing on smart bidding and talking about machine learning. In 95% of the time, we simply see it outperforming manual bidding, of course, when it is set up correctly. And it only needs a fraction of the time to maintain it compared to effectively maintaining manual bidding. And the other 5% of times when manual bidding could outperform smart bidding, the time investment needed to put in usually just does not make sense, because you need to be an exceptional account manager to pull it off with a lot of manual work. And in most cases, if this manual work would be invested in other areas of marketing or strategizing, while smart bidding maybe is doing the bidding and initially bringing 5% lower results compared to manual bidding, in the long run, you would still outperform the manual bidding with smart bidding. And smart bidding does learn with time as well and keeps getting better and better. So in our experiences, there are very, very few use cases, if any, for not using smart bidding. It's more of a question how you set it up and how you make it work for you. Now, with that out of the way, please don't hesitate to use the chat function and ask questions. So far, I've seen a few enthusiastic AI assistants, but please join them there in case you have any questions. I will go through them at the end and try to answer them all to the best of my abilities. That said, before we get into any of the finer details, just a quick note to make sure we're starting off on the same page. By account structure, as in the title and mentioned multiple times already, I mean how you have divided your account into campaigns, how you've divided those campaigns into ad groups, and how you have grouped keywords within those ad groups. So we'll touch all of these levels of structure in today's discussion, but mainly keeping our focus on campaigns. Now, on to the good stuff. Keep your coffee, snacks, pens, notebooks close. And I also challenge you to count how many times I say structure in the next hour. Now, just kidding. Please don't. I really don't want to know. Okay, so there's many ways and angles to approach account or campaign structuring, and also for interpreting what account or campaign structuring can even mean in your case. In today's session, we'll tackle the various nuances of structuring or segmenting search campaigns, as this is the dominant or kind of core campaign type we see in B2B Google Ads accounts. And the first kind of guiding thought for this entire session that I'd like to maybe introduce or just put out there is that one way we view account structure is that we look at it as one of the tools, let's say, to help machine learning succeed or work as efficiently as possible. Now, for everything I say today, there can surely be an exception, as always, with everything. But in general, we see that it is tricky to outperform Google's smart bidding algorithms if the account has been set up in a way that supports automated bidding, as already mentioned a minute ago. So that meaning first and foremost with precise and rich conversion data, correct targeting, relevant messaging, good account structure, and other settings among those. Now, the main challenge with using smart bidding in B2B accounts is the already mentioned scarcity of data. And we often simply don't get hundreds and hundreds of high quality conversions, like, for example, paying customers that we're all ultimately after each month as input for the algorithms to learn and make granular bidding decisions on keyword or even search term level. So the second idea or kind of base principle guiding today's workshop that we should keep in mind is that data is, let's say, stored and learnings happen on various levels of granularity, meaning on various structure levels of the account. I like to also explain it as smart bidding uses these various structure levels as data groupings to make those smart bidding decisions. So when a search happens on Google and an auction happens in the background to determine which advertisers' ads will be shown and in which positions, Google's algorithms will first look at its kind of overall data, what they refer to as Google-wide data, to make bidding decisions. And if there is already enough data on the account level to make a more informed and precise bidding decision, the account level data is also used to make those bidding decisions. And similarly, if there is enough data on a specific campaign level, then that campaign level data will help determine the bid. And yes, we continue. If there is enough data in that ad group, that's what mainly will help determine the bid. And similarly, keyword level and most granular and precise that we'll consider here today, if there's enough data for that specific search term, then that will be the one used to make the most informed granular bidding decision. Keeping in mind that actually audience signals also play a significant role. So even kind of person level data is used. But for the sake of simplification, we usually go until search term level, as this is what is more under our control from the structuring perspective, let's say, and most relevant in the context of today's workshop. So to summarize, Google stores or has performance data on all these various structure levels. And ideally, yes, we'd like each bidding decision to be super granular and precise and happening on the most granular search term level and not affected by wider data and averages in the account. But as mentioned, scarcity of data is something we must inevitably deal with in the majority of B2B accounts. So here's where the importance of how you have structured your account comes in. The main question we could ask here is, what data do we want the machine learning algorithms to base their decisions on? Or even similarly, what data would we want to base our manual bidding decisions on if we were using manual bidding? Because then as well, we can only make informed optimization decisions based on data. And if there's not enough data on one level, we as humans would also look at data on the next higher up structure level that presumably, hopefully has more data. And we want to make sure that that higher up level data is still relevant to help guide a good relevant bid decision. But back to the question of what data do we want the machine learning algorithms to base their decisions on, and why does this even matter? For example, if there is not enough data on search term or keyword or ad group level, are we happy with the machine learning looking at the average data of that entire campaign to determine an optimal bid when entering an auction? Does the campaign consist of keywords in ad groups that are grouped tightly enough that their presumable performance is similar enough that we're not going to end up with a bid that's too far off from what would make sense for the specific keyword and search term? So in short, are we happy with using a bid derived from the average performance and data from that entire campaign because we did not have more granular data, enough more granular data available on ad group level? So for example, a non-ideal situation example, if we have pooled lower intent and higher intent ad groups together in a single campaign, and in the auction, the campaign level data is what will mainly influence the bid, then the bid will be taken as an average of what would make sense for both the higher and lower intent keywords. But in this case, the average bid would likely actually not be relevant for either type of keyword because higher intent keywords would benefit from a higher bid and lower intent keywords should have a lower bid. And in this scenario, if we're entering the auction with a bid that was taken as an average of the two, then in one case, we're not bidding high enough. The other case, we're overbidding and we'll end up overspending and also not capturing potentially the conversions from the higher intent keywords. So the intent behind the keyword could be one of the things to keep in mind when making these structuring decisions, for example. And just kind of adding here as a bit of a side note that typically we distinguish 3 levels of intent: high, medium, and low. Low meaning keywords that capture users who are both not problem aware and not solution aware yet. So keywords of which intent we are unsure. Medium covering people that are problem aware, but the solution is still unclear to them. And high meaning keywords that capture people that are problem aware and solution aware, and often already comparing solutions at this point. So why and how should campaigns be consolidated or split? In general, we know that keywords are used to target and capture relevant searchers. Ad groups are used to group those keywords into, well, groups to determine which ad should be shown to this specific group of people targeted by these specific keywords. As for campaigns, there are some settings you can only influence on campaign level. So campaigns are created to differentiate settings like, for example, location, language, budget, bidding targets, KPIs, etc. And let's look a little closer at some of the principles that could be referred to when deciding how to divide, structure, or segment your campaigns. But first, putting it out there in writing in capital letters, in bold as well, that the goal in most cases should be to try to consolidate. During our workshop today, we are spending more time talking about the segmenting or splitting, as we'll be covering the reasons where the consolidation best practice does not make sense or when it's advised to go against it. But you should always keep in mind that consolidation should really be the main goal. That's always kept at the back of your head. So not going super granular and having tiny amounts of data on each level only. So again, in general, assuming we're operating in a scarce data environment, we like to keep in mind the broad principle of consolidating as much as possible, but separating campaigns for the following reasons in order to help guide machine learning towards better decision making. First, and maybe the simplest or most straightforward, is separating campaigns based on targeting different geographic locations and localizing. Now, this scenario emphasizes the importance of tailoring your Google Ads campaigns to specific geographic areas and linguistic groups. It's particularly relevant if your market approach needs customization based on location or language. And some essential questions to ask in this case, like, are you planning to target users within specific geographic boundaries, such as cities, regions, countries, keeping in mind that location targeting is set on the campaign level? Or does your advertising message need to be adapted based on the primary language your target audience speaks? So, for example, analyzing the share of queries in English versus local language by using, for example, Market Explorer for that. And thirdly, is your website or landing page content localized to align with your specific target markets? So localization might have been done on the landing page, within the tool or software that you're providing, in support, etc. So an example of when this type of segmenting for localization is relevant is when you've done good customer research and understand the differences in what your ideal customer values in different regions. So, for example, from Google's research about B2B tech users specifically, we can see that while the two aspects that users value during their landing page experience are the same, the third most important aspect that helps drive higher conversion rates is different between US and UK, as examples here. In UK's case, that's seeing reviews and endorsements, but in US, it's demo videos, what users prefer. So this kind of knowledge could also help you tailor the communication you're using across the entire journey towards becoming a paying customer, starting from ad copy, which is what we can influence most via Google Ads. And in this case, when you see these kind of differences that you determine to be significant enough, you can make those segmenting choices within Google Ads. Now, the second scenario addresses budget allocation and performance measurement across different regions. So segmenting your Google Ads account by region might be, for example, required by the company's business organization units. For example, a specific region's sales team might have given a set budget amount as input for you to support their sales and coverage in that specific region. And some key questions to refer to determine if this is like a relevant segmenting principle for you. Firstly, do you need to allocate your advertising budget differently across various regions? Like, really, do you need to? You might not. That's also often the case, and people do it kind of just for the sake of doing it. So really think deeply. Do you need to allocate your advertising budget differently? Are some markets more valuable, or do they require more investment than others? This can mean that maybe leads and customers from one region have proven to be of higher lifetime value than others, and it makes sense to invest more aggressively in this specific region, even though the one-time conversion numbers can even tell a different story. And is there a need to track performance and ROI separately for each region? And is the only way to do that, or the significantly more convenient way to do that, via having them in separate campaigns? So if you're, for example, let's say, expanding to a new market and not fazed by the initial naturally lower performance of that market and want to focus on visibility, it would make sense to separate that market or region into a separate campaign so you can better control the budget investment, bidding goals, and volumes. Otherwise, if you just add the new market within an already existing campaign, it can be that the better performing regions might eat up most of the budget, as it's easiest for smart bidding to deliver results from those markets where you're already more established and have more historical performance data available. The second already briefly mentioned use case for this kind of segmenting is when, for example, the UK team is telling you that, okay, we're giving you X amount of budget, please maximize results within this budget. And the US team is giving you Y amount of budget to maximize results in the US within that budget. And even if you could improve the kind of accounts overall results by allocating the budget differently, this is a strict requirement from the team or management. So in this case, it would make sense to separate UK and US into separate campaigns. Now, this next scenario focuses on tailoring campaigns to meet specific goals, like brand awareness or sales, for example, and using clear KPIs for measurement. It's really essential for a targeted strategy and like granular optimization decisions. So some questions to see if this one's for you. Do you have different campaign goals within Google Ads? For example, brand awareness versus sales versus lead gen? Are your KPIs clearly defined for each goal? And will campaigns require different strategies or content to achieve these goals? Now, here's an example of a campaign division where the campaigns clearly have different goals, and their success is determined by different KPIs and/or their values. So I'm sure it's not news to anyone here in this call today that brand campaigns are something that, if brand keywords are targeted in the account, it would always make sense to separate these from the rest of the campaigns. So keeping brand campaigns separately as done here and seen on the first row. Their performance is simply so different from the rest of the campaigns that pooling them together or allowing branded searches to just come up within other campaigns targeting would just mess up your reporting and decision making, among other things. So next, there's a specific campaign for promoting an ebook, for example. There might be some specific marketing goals tied to that, and then separate campaigns for higher and lower intent targeting. Okay, we've reached the fourth. I'll take a quick nose break. Sorry. Now, this fourth scenario approaches segmenting campaigns from the angle of looking at the role of data in shaping and refining your advertising strategy, from automated bidding to actionable insights, and some essential questions for this one. So if you take this approach or angle, how should I efficiently structure my account to leverage automated bidding strategies and machine learning? And what level of granularity is justified? What account structure will enable logical data analysis for extracting actionable insights? And just to come back here for a second, this kind of approach can kind of be viewed as an overarching, let's say, thought process guideline across all of these, because as we mentioned at the start, we do like to look at account structure as a bit of like a tool to help machine learning. So defining kind of an efficient account structure from the machine learning perspective, these questions should probably accompany you no matter what other kind of approach or angle you're taking. So my example case for this one also aligns with the idea of segmenting to localize, but it also goes pretty well under this point. So let's say your target markets are US, UK, Australia, and United Arab Emirates, and you're a B2B company. So the person making the purchase or contract decision is someone working in or owning a business, and you're advertising in English. So these are the kind of base data to keep in mind for this. The first thought might be to pool all of these countries together in one campaign, choose all 4 as locations to target, and English as the language to target. Or on the other end of the spectrum, we see account managers in this situation creating 4 different campaigns, 1 for each country. Usually everything else in the campaigns is even left identical. So all of the keywords and ads will be the same across all of these, might be the same across all of these campaigns. These have been situations we have seen when conducting audits in various accounts. But one way to approach this that I'd like to introduce is to consider which of those countries are similar in their business culture. So if you're operating in a B2B scenario, in which countries would the decision maker or searcher of your keywords be kind of like a similar profile person? And in which country or countries will that person or those people involved in the decision making and searching be completely different, even from the kind of position they're holding in the company? And the first, albeit a generic and not knowing much details, state answer I would give here would be that perhaps things are relatively similar in the US, UK, and Australia business landscapes, but UAE might have a different enough business culture that it would make sense to keep UAE in a separate campaign. So it would be easier for machine learning to profile the target audience in all of these countries' cases. So on one hand, we're keeping more data pooled together so that such profiling and decision-making is easier for machine learning by having 3 countries, US, UK, Australia, in one campaign. And on the other hand, we'd consciously keep UAE separately, as the profile of the likely converter or person searching for our keywords there is so different that if pooled together with the others, it would probably create more confusion and simply take longer for the machine learning to understand the differences of the buyer personas in the different regions. And keeping in mind that in B2B, we're almost always operating in a relatively data scarce situation. So any of these learnings take even longer, and anything that we can do manually to kind of guide machine learning or give it a, let's say, head start, best chance of success are super valuable and impactful. But again, disclaimer here that this specifically separating UAE from others, if you're targeting UAE in your marketing strategy, might not be relevant for your business. You know your vertical and business best and can better determine if there are indeed any such differences in your case. And if yes, how significant are they? And if they warrant such separation. So this was just an example to illustrate the point of kind of creating those data groupings based on some principles that manually we can already kind of predict, but it would maybe take some time for machine learning to learn those. So on to the next one. This scenario focuses on structuring your Google Ads account to reflect the diversity of your products or services and their respective market segments. And then it's about tailoring strategies for each offering or group of offerings to meet unique customer needs effectively. And then some of the questions to ask yourself around this one: do you offer multiple products or services that cater to different customer needs? Will you need to measure performance and adjust strategies for each offering separately? And thirdly, are there distinct market segments or audiences for different parts of your offering? So this last question is, again, an example of a case where you could help machine learning by creating a data grouping of distinct audiences and the corresponding offerings that you have. So the products or service tiers or product tiers. So for example, a small business versus an enterprise tier of a CRM software, if you're a CRM software business like HubSpot, for example. Or let's say you're a fleet management software with a product range that covers various needs of various types of users handling various aspects of fleet management. So it would probably make sense to segment based on those different offerings you have for different users, keeping different ICPs or like buyer personas and the corresponding offerings structurally separate to simplify and better guide bidding, budgeting, decision-making, message tailoring, reporting per each offering that you have. Okay, and let's consider this next one as a bit of an extra, as it's a rather uncommon scenario in B2B. It assesses whether to engage audiences continuously or focus on those short-lived, high-impact campaigns based on strategic marketing goals and resource availability. So you'd be dividing campaigns based on their lifetime, seasonality, and your resource availability. Things to ask yourself to see if you identify with this one. Is my goal to build and maintain brand awareness over time? So having these always on campaigns, or to generate a quick surge in attention and conversions for a specific time sensitive goal. So these would be the burst campaigns. Or if your kind of goal is the combination of these two, then considering how you set up your always on versus your burst campaigns. How will my resource and budget distribution between always on and burst campaigns align with my long-term and short-term marketing objectives? So something to kind of think through. And do I have the capacity for ongoing optimization and content refreshment needed for always on campaigns, or is my strategy more aligned with the targeted intensity of burst campaigns? So again, we covered some, definitely not all of the various reasons where separating and splitting makes sense, but we should not forget that consolidation still remains the first general goal. And we only go against it, we only separate campaigns when we have a good enough reason for it. But what happens if you don't make the right choices in your account structuring stage of your Google Ads journey, and what are the consequences you might face? So oftentimes when auditing accounts, we do see that there's kind of like a combination of different strategies present in the account. And while it is likely that your approach will require a combination of some of these discussed scenarios and maybe some additional ones, it's still, I think, relevant and necessary to have some form of consistency and kind of thinking through the overall strategy. But let's see if in general your account is structured in an inefficient way that doesn't kind of help machine learning do its job too well, what will be happening and how? So as illustrated a bit earlier already, one of the main and most tangible consequences of suboptimal account structuring can be inefficient bidding decisions happening due to suboptimal data groupings. And by data groupings, I mean account structuring. So if there is not enough data on any given level, is the next level from which data will now be looked at relevant enough and helps guide towards a bid that still makes sense for that specific search? So let's look at a few specific examples here as well. One scenario I've seen quite often during audits recently is having only one ad group per campaign. And what this essentially does is makes you miss out on the benefits of one of those structure levels. So when there is not enough data on search term, keyword, or ad group level to make any decisions, you won't have any extra data on campaign level, as that campaign only consists of one ad group. So the next step for the bidding algorithm is to already look at entire account data. But do you want a search's bid to be determined based on the whole account's average performance? So a jump from like ad group level to account level is quite a significant one. And usually such cases I have seen can be described by just all keywords being pulled together in one ad group, as there were no different landing pages available to use anyway. And the overall messaging of the company's benefits and unique value proposition remained the same. So the thought process was to just keep all those keywords together, as the landing pages and ad copy are the same anyway. And this kind of consolidation would be reasonable if there really is no potential differentiation of ad copy and the problem of the searcher that they are looking for a solution for, or kind of the profile of the user, were also the same across all those keywords. But what I have seen from the conducted audits is that more often than not, the keywords that had been grouped together actually did have varying intent and maybe even customer profiles behind them. And I know this is easier said than done, but I am a strong advocate of always trying to further improve your ad copy. So in many cases, there could actually be more targeted ad copy created for those different intent or different customer profile keywords. So the recommended structural separation in this case wouldn't only happen just to group keywords by intent. keeping ads identical, there usually is potential to actually tailor ad copy as well. And another more, let's say, tangible result of pretty much the same problem, that when keywords are grouped together too broadly or irrelevantly, is that the ad in that ad group won't be as relevant as it could be for most or some of the keywords and searches those keywords trigger. This will result, of course, in lower click-through rates and ad relevance, which will bring you a lower quality score, significantly higher cost per clicks, and essentially just your budget being wasted for having overpaid for CPCs. So no, my recommendation here is not to create single keyword ad groups to tackle ad relevance. One of the things that is usually viewed as the main reason for going more granular with structure is improving relevance. And some years ago, yes, single keyword ad groups were all the rage. So each keyword had its own ad group with an ad where the ad copy mirrored the keyword to improve ad relevance. So this increased relevance both in the eyes of Google's algorithms that evaluated the ad relevance corresponding to the search, and also in the eyes of the user that does the search, because they're seeing their search pretty much mirrored in the ad that they are shown. And I too have built many campaigns with SCAG structure, but this was many moons and at least 10 gray hairs ago. So times have changed. Using and relying on automated bidding and other automations within Google Ads call for a different setup now. So less granular, more grouped by intent, goals, audiences, or themes. And the kind of question that you might get in this situation or at this stage is that, does this mean that in order to help algorithms have more data, we have to make sacrifices to things like ad relevance and quality scores with the price of increased cost per clicks? Well, no, fortunately not. As promised, this is something that will hopefully help with a little bit today as well. There's 3 things or tools or strategies that can help us improve ad relevance, even with a very much consolidated account structure. Here they are, and we'll go through them all one by one. So first, and also most commonly already used option is keyword insertion. So this being the option of dynamically changing a headline of the ad based on what keyword triggered the ad. So let's say your business is a data crawling platform and someone searches for something like scrape Amazon bestsellers product data. And your keyword is scrape Amazon bestsellers in your account. If using dynamic keyword insertion, your headline would be scrape Amazon bestsellers. If a different search happens and a different keyword from that same ad group would trigger the ad, then the headline using keyword insertion would reflect that specific keyword. So this is what helps kind of keep the ad relevance still high. You're still matching the keyword that triggers, but you're able to do that within one ad, as opposed to the previous best practice of several years ago, creating a separate ad for every keyword. Because then obviously you're going to have way less data on every ad's level. Right now, all of that data is pulled together into one ad group and in one ad. Now, to set this up, first you should review that the keywords you have in your ad group would make sense as headlines. So if you're inserting them dynamically into a headline, that they look okay as like phrases to use. And then simply insert a curly bracket in the headline or description field when creating or editing an ad, and the following drop-down that you see here will open up. And then choose keyword insertion. And then type in just the default text for the headline that would be shown in case the keyword cannot be displayed as a headline, for example, due to not fitting in the 30-character limit. And choose which case you'd like the keyword to be displayed in when it's shown as a headline. So this means you don't need to worry about the case of your keywords, the capitalization there. And voila, you have a dynamic headline where the text of the headline dynamically changes to the keyword that matched the search and triggered the ad. And just a note here as well that the default headline would be something that would be kind of a backup strategy and relevant, generally relevant for all of those keywords within the ad group. Now, if it would make sense for you to, for example, use different landing pages for different keywords, but those keywords would otherwise benefit from being grouped together in an ad group, you can use keyword level final URLs. We don't see this being used very, very often when doing audits and seeing into other accounts. So otherwise, the ad would be the same within one ad group, one ad, but the landing page will simply be different based on the keyword that triggers the ad. And this can, of course, be used on its own or in combination with keyword insertion as well. So looking at the visual example here, the first keyword could be using a unique landing page, while the other two keywords could be sharing the same second landing page. All, again, within one ad group and using only one ad, so you don't lose that data across different ad groups and ads, keeping things as consolidated as possible. One way to kind of set this up, you'll get the slides later as well, so it's easier to refer back to. Just go to your keywords view or keywords report, select the keyword or keywords that you want to add a new landing page to, click edit, and then just choose the change final URLs option. Okay, and the final and most, let's say, advanced option for increasing relevance, even with a very much consolidated structure, would be using ad customizers. And there's various uses for and types of ad customizers, but for now, we'll look at the option of having custom ad copy per keyword, even if you still have only one ad. And this would be useful in cases where simply just repeating the keyword in the headline isn't considered enough, or just not the best option. So in cases where keyword insertion wouldn't suffice and you'd like to say something extra, because in some cases we do already want to provide some additional information or value, or already a little bit like answer the problem that the person is searching with the limited ad copy that we have available, and maybe just repeating the keyword would be considered kind of a waste of space a little bit. So yeah, as opposed to just repeating the user's search or the keyword that triggers the ad, for example, what we could do, using an example from Google's own support materials here. Let's say one of the things you sell is mixers, and moving to a little bit of an e-commerce example, it's usually easier for understanding these e-com examples. Let's say you sell mixers, and one of the models and your keywords is this Pro Whip 300. And you can define different attributes about the mixer that you might want to highlight in your ad, like seen here. So essentially, it's a spreadsheet with every keyword on its separate row, and then the corresponding attributes have all of their values next to that keyword. And then you can refer to these attributes in your ad creation. And when an ad is triggered by the specific Pro Whip 300 keyword, we can display a very custom, very relevant ad to the user, highlighting the specific features worth mentioning about this product and keyword. So the ad copy would change dynamically based on the keyword that triggers the ad. But again, we still only have one ad for all of the keywords in our ad group, not diluting data unnecessarily. And you don't, of course, have to use this many attributes per keyword, and can start off by simply customizing one headline to change according to the keyword that triggers it. So for example, if your business is an HR software and your keyword is employee data, simply mirroring employee data in a headline doesn't do too much, or it doesn't really give much value, let's say. So you might want to consider ad customizers and creating a custom headline for the keyword employee data. So when someone searches employee data or something else that matches that keyword, you can show them ad copy stating that you offer centralized employee data reports, which already communicates more value. And also, A little cheeky advantage we've discovered is that when using ad customizers, you can slightly bypass the 30 character limit for headlines to extend your headline to even around 35 or 45 characters, which in some cases really does make a significant difference. And I think kind of delving deeper into this and giving more of a tutorial kind of look into this ad customizer strategy could potentially be a separate workshop on its own. So if this is something that you'd be interested in, then let me know either in the chat section here, or better yet, in the short feedback form I'll share soon with you. And with this, we're nearing the end of today's workshop. So let's just summarize once more what the key takeaways should be from our shared time together here. Now, I would like to highlight, though, that none of the ideas discussed today should be taken just as is and half blindly applied to your business. Each business and the strategy that works for it best, especially in B2B, are different. And the points and examples discussed today are meant to serve as kind of guidelines or thought process starters for you to use as a base to figure out the best option for you, which will likely even be a hybrid of multiple of these or something different entirely. Now, that said, the main things to remember from our time together here, really keeping it simple, consolidate as much as possible. Even though we talked quite a bit about segmentation principles, the number one goal still remaining consolidation. Separating when needed, when really needed, just because not only because you want to see stuff nicely on different rows in the campaign report. There's various ways of extracting data and reporting without having things as separate campaigns every time. And consider how you're using your structure as data groupings to guide machine learnings. What is the data that the machine learning can look at based on how you have grouped it together? Does it make sense? Will it have to rely too much on some averages, or is it rather closely tied to one specific level of intent or buyer persona? And a consolidated structure doesn't have to mean the ads you show users are any less relevant. So look at incorporating keyword insertion and ad customizers and keyword level final URLs if needed. Now, before I'll take a look at any questions, if there are any posted in the chat, I'd like to remind you that I'll be sending out today's recording early next week. You'll get the link to the email address you provided when you registered, and it will be added to our website, holini.com, as well early next week. I'm also posting a link in the chat here now for providing some quick feedback. So if you find time, I would really appreciate your thoughts on how all this was for you. And hopefully we can make future workshops even better and more relevant. And it's a super quick questionnaire, I promise, nothing backbreaking. So let's see. Yeah, this should be it. Okay, if anyone has any questions, now is the time to post them here. I see 3 AI assistants have posted, but no specific questions just yet. So I will say thank you and remain here for a few minutes. Someone has raised a hand. Let's see if you can. I will have to unmute. You probably can't unmute yourself right now, I think, due to the settings here. Let me see. I'll find the place where I changed it from earlier. So we can give you a word. Just a moment. I found it earlier, but then there it is. Okay, I hope that me changing the setting now enabled you to turn your mic off. I'll see who it was who raised the question. Or if it was you that also typed it in chat, I'll take that one now. How many conversions are required per level ad group campaign to facilitate efficient machine learning? Excellent question. We get this super often. Unfortunately, there is no black and white answer. It really depends on a variety of factors, up to kind of the complexity of your business's niche as well. In general, kind of a number that Google has communicated has been roughly 30 per month. They have said this about campaign levels, so 30 conversions per month on a campaign or within like a bid strategy. It's clearly not like a black and white line or like an on-off switch that it doesn't work until 29, and once you reach 30 it would work. So obviously all of the smart bidding and automations work based on data. The more data you have, the better they can work. So it will start working even from zero. That's what Google has communicated. The question is how well does it work, and what do you consider working well as well? So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a specific number. Life would be so much easier if we had that kind of threshold that Google then promised us, okay, once you have reached this, your life will be easy and will work as a money machine for you. Okay, got a question from Denise. As a separation example, you showed here where US, UK, etc. countries were consolidated into one campaign and UAE was a separate campaign. How much would the data differ machine learning wise if, for example, US and UK would be separate campaigns, but they would be using a shared budget between them? One moment. Now, what influences bidding more isn't so much the shared budget, but rather a portfolio bid strategy or a joint bid strategy. So you could keep them as separate campaigns, but then have them under a portfolio bidding strategy if your kind of goal across them is indeed the same. So in that case, it would work technically, as far as I know, it would work the same as having them in one campaign. You would simply kind of in your campaign view see them as separate. And if you wanted to, you could control the spend with having campaign level budgets. But what influences bidding and having kind of the bid strategy, having access to data across US and UK and being able to kind of create a joint customer profile and having joint data is portfolio bid strategies, not shared budgets. Okay, we have Sharon. Do you recommend the maximum number of keywords per ad group? No such number. In general, one thing to keep in mind is that adding keywords to an ad group is also something that helps Google algorithms understand the intent of the ad group. So Google kind of creates a profile of intent, let's say, also on ad group level. And if you have one keyword in the ad group that is, let's say, more broad a little bit, or can have multiple meanings just because of, like, I don't know, linguistic synonyms, but you have added other more niche keywords as well into the same ad group, those will help Google understand the overall intent of all of those keywords within that ad group. So there is no maximum. It all comes down to rather things like, are you still keeping the intent kind of close and relevant enough? If there's a lot of synonyms, why not really have more? There could be some kind of drawbacks I could see where, I don't know, perhaps this would end up diluting data across keywords too much, so that if you add every single search term that you see, that you ever get as a keyword on its own, then like data would be diluted across all those keywords. But to some extent, it's relevant to add relevant keywords or relevant search terms as their own keyword, because in that case, Google can start kind of gathering data already on that keyword level. So yeah, in general, I don't think you should be worried about this. If it makes sense, if it's relevant theme-wise, go at it, add those keywords and create more. Okay, Argo, would you guys use shared bidding strategies across different campaigns to maintain relevance? Shameless plug here. I did a separate workshop on budgeting and bidding and very extensively discussed the different pros of portfolio bid strategies. So if this is something you're kind of thinking about, I really recommend checking that out because there it was a whole workshop dedicated to that. In general, shared bidding strategies across different campaigns to maintain relevance. I'm not fully sure I'm understanding the question entirely here. If it makes sense to pool those multiple campaigns together, if the overarching goal of those is the same, let's say all of them are aiming towards a target ROAS of 700, then yes, pooling them together does have its significant advantages. I wouldn't necessarily say that pooling different campaigns under a portfolio bid strategy is what maintains relevance or creates relevance. So yeah, I think go watch that previous workshop and hopefully you'll have some answers there. If not, message me and I will be happy to discuss further. Questions from Oscars. How are you approaching those cases when the campaign has been running for a while and there is just no conversions and valuable data to analyze? This, again, I believe we touched in, was it the previous workshop? Was it the one before that? Workshop for B2B CMOs was that one called. In general, kind of without knowing more context or having seen in the account, of course, I would look at the option of creating additional conversion actions. So conversion actions that are kind of one step higher or a few steps higher in the purchase funnel, marketing funnel, sales funnel, so that we could be gathering at least some data that is richer than just clicks. So we want to avoid optimizing towards just clicks. So any additional signals we can give the algorithms about users that are even slightly more relevant than just a random visitor would be one approach to consider. And then there's this strategy of using value-based bidding, assigning those different conversion actions with different value to your business, different values. And then by using value-based bidding, you're also telling Google algorithms, okay, I do want to get all of these, but they are of different value to me. So you, the algorithm, Google, get rewarded more, let's say, for bringing me the really valuable ones, let's say the paying customer ones. But if you cannot bring me those in significant enough volumes, you will simply have to bring me those higher up funnel stage conversions more to still reach the goals that I have set for the bidding. I hope that gave somewhat of an answer. So Rohan, based on conversion data, let's say over a period of 6 months, would it be the right strategy to fetch most conversion search terms, so ones with more than 5 conversions, from broad match keywords and add them into a new campaign and add groups in exact match? Also, if we are doing like this, can we add these terms to negatives in broad match keyword ad groups? Okay, this is already quite a specific scenario question. I would feel more comfortable answering this if I had more context. In general, just from what I have seen and experienced so far and what I know from this question, adding keywords from search terms that have more than 5 conversions, yes, very relevant, adding those as keywords. Now, it's a question, where do you add those keywords? What's the reasoning behind adding them in a separate campaign and separate ad groups? That's something I would kind of think through a little bit more or want to discuss with you and see if it really makes sense to approach that way. In general, if you see search terms that already have a proven track record of conversions, then it's worth adding them as keywords. But where do you add them? If in the same same campaign, same ad group as the broad match, or yeah, that's a different topic a little bit. So this, what you described, is a strategy that was done during the times of single keyword ad groups a lot as well. So you had that kind of prospecting campaign with broad targeting, broad match keywords, and anything that was kind of discovered from there was added as exact match separately. But yeah, I kind of view those broad match, exact match roles a little bit differently now. So not being afraid of also keeping broad match under my, let's say, main core strategy, if I have a good conversion tracking in place, and if I have set goals for that smart bidding that I am using that really are profitable to me. Okay, if you want to discuss more, message me later. Monique, keyword related. To try avoid diluting data, we tried removing some duplicate keywords. For example, keyword 1, blue socks, keyword 2, socks blue. However, the impressions lost in the duplicate keyword were not gained in the keyword allowed running. Any idea why this happens? There can be multiple reasons, I guess. Did the quality scores remain the same? Did you look at overall search volumes? Did the search volumes change during that time? So in this way, you could be looking at a metric like search impression share to evaluate if you lost something by doing this change. One thing I have seen that can be kind of like a little threat or a little mistake that happens in accounts is when you used to have a very granular structure, so single keyword ad groups or something similar, and like in your case as well, like blue socks and socks blue, something like that sounds like something from the time of single keyword ad groups. What was done then to avoid kind of cross-matching was adding ad group level negative keywords. So socks blue was added as a negative keyword to the blue socks, and vice versa as well, to ensure that whenever someone searches for either of them, they will be matched with the precisely matching keyword, not the other one for whatever reason. Now, if you are moving towards a more consolidated account structure and you're removing these types of duplicates, also check that you don't have any negative keywords left in the account, in the ad group, in whatever lists that might be limiting your new impressions. So if you pause socks blue, but the blue socks ad group still has the negative keyword socks blue, then it won't start showing up there. So hard to say. There can be multiple reasons. This was just kind of one quick check to take a look at. Okay, and I believe this is it. My email is on the screen. I will post the feedback form once again for you guys still here. Super thankful for any feedback that you can give. It's a really quick questionnaire, under 1 minute for sure, I believe. And if someone would like to discuss something further, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to answer as soon as I can, and talk about this some more with you. Okay, that's it. Thank you for joining me. I hope it was insightful, and I hope to see you in some of our next workshops or webinars. Thank you.